The catchphrase that you hear a lot is that history tends to repeat itself, but that doesn't have to be the case because when something happens, we're supposed to learn from it. And once we learn from it, it's okay to move on and experience a new horizon. That's evolution. Evolution of the self, evolution of the community. Hotep, dear brothers and sisters. Joel here with another message of divine light just for you. Last night, I had the realization that we are living through difficult times, but not by coincidence. It's there to show us the darkness that we've just allowed all this time. It's kind of like been on default. Things that we never even questioned are now coming to the surface, and we're being forced to deal with it. The thing is to remember that these things aren't beyond our control. They're not out of our realm of influence. They're coming to our attention now because we are capable of addressing these situations. We are capable of changing the stories around them, even though we might not know the solutions which to implement in order to change the physical. But we do know how we can inwardly readdress the way we think about things and the way we act regarding certain issues, because the issues that we are faced with, the issues that are coming up might not look like we have control over them, but there are those same situations which we are enforcing on others. For example, there's been a lot of fear, obviously, circulating the collective, and one of the things that comes up is the fact that social distancing may actually be enforced. We might actually see police in the streets, and there may actually be some talk of martial law being implemented. Now, these things aren't new, they do happen, and they have happened in our past. And the catchphrase that you hear a lot is that history tends to repeat itself, but that doesn't have to be the case because when something happens, we're supposed to learn from it. And once we learn from it, it's okay to move on and experience a new horizon. That's evolution. Evolution of the self, evolution of the community. Now, in the case of martial law, it came to me that we accept a ruling body over us, but the ruling body is not doing it with the intent to enslave us. The ruling body is there out of concern, right? They themselves are acting out of concern. And I asked myself, how do we enforce such confinements or such authoritative state on others, but we ourselves are doing it out of concern? And it hit me that we do the same thing to children as adults, because when I was in the supermarket, I saw a lady with 5 children coming in, and normally I'm fine with children, but in this case I was like, they're just running around and making noise, and it's out of the ordinary to see that in a supermarket, or it was up until recently, because now where are the children going to go, right? And so I realized, hey, why am I upset by this, right? Because I don't want to lock kids away. That's the last thing I want to do, because I do remember what it was like when adults treated me like that as a child. But we as adults, we send children to school, and the way children are treated in school is actually very restrictive and limiting. And when you think about it, a lot of the things that we do to them, like you can only eat at this certain time, you can only go out at this certain time, you can't be talking to your uh, colleagues unless it's approved. It's basically the same thing we do to inmates in prison. And as adults, we're doing it out of, with not the intent to lock children up. We're doing it with the intent, like, oh, you have to get an education, you have to be here with someone to take care of you, or whatever it is. We're doing it with good intent, but it is a form of control, and that is exactly what the government and the police force are manifesting as. So the more darker aspects of these institutions must come to the surface for us in order to actually look at them and say, hey, I'm not saying do away with government or do away with police force, but I'm saying that maybe we need to reassess the way that we think about it. Maybe we need to reassess the way that we interact with this institution and how it's implemented, because ultimately all rules are written out of the lack or out of the fear mentality. They're all written under the precaution of somebody might break the rules, so we need some protection in place. We need some form of, control for those that are willing to break the control. That mindset doesn't serve to protect. I mean, it's counterintuitive when you think in terms of violence begets violence. So we just need to see this whole thing from a new perspective, because I like to compare it. People talk about this whole virus as an effect of, some people say it's the effect of people eating meat. For one thing, the virus shows up from bats. People were eating bats and then they contracted the virus. At least that's the story. So we see people have said, oh, karma, or this is your judgment. People have different words for this depending on the society or depending on their frame of reference from which they're addressing the situation, just their culture in general. These are semantics, but ultimately this is just cause and effect. We live in a physical world and we're going to experience physical results of that. And as a collective, like ourselves, yes, are individual. Like I'm an individual, you're an individual. We all have our own choices. But as a collective, we are also a single unit called humanity. And so it's obvious that humanity is being forced to take some time and reassess what it's been doing. We're doing this on an individual level, and particularly with the way quarantine is being implemented and just the way people are behaving to each other in general, it is playing out on an individual level, which we have to reassess our individual perspectives and our individual actions and our individual paradigms here. But ultimately, this is readdressing the whole of humanity. All of humanity is being forced to ultimately wake up through this, because the world is really just a reflection of ourselves. A lot of it is the reflection of our deep subconscious autopilot programming. That's mostly what it is. And for us to see it for what it is, for it to even be brought to the surface, a lot of times it's very painful. It is very painful because a lot of it we didn't intentionally put there, and a lot of it has been planted there by others, and those others have been meaning well, so our interpretation of what they've put there is clouded by their stories on top of that. So for us to change these stories is uncomfortable, but in order to see a new horizon, we have to change our course, and that requires a bit of the inner work. We're being forced to look at this stuff now for a reason. And we just have to do this. This is chapter 1. Once the book starts, we're on a new page and we're on to a new horizon. We can write the story as to how not only this situation unfolds, but the future of the world unfolds. We can literally do that. And that's what this channel's about. That's what I'm going to be sharing here. So all this information, all my tips and all my practices, I'm going to be sharing because they've helped me immensely. And I've seen things change in the world, and we're going to see more change in the world because we're all starting to do this work now. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more videos like this, and leave a comment down below because that inspires others and helps knit us all together in this community of a high vibe tribe. Have an amazing day, folks. Agape, salam, namaste. See you in the next video, guys.